Hi, I'm Celia, a neuroscientist working from Gurus at LabTwin.
And my name is Dennis. I lead customer success at LabTwin. In today's presentation, we want to outline how smart lab assistants can be applied to pharma workflows. And we brought some examples and some numbers, and we hope that we can illustrative for you and how mobile technology and lab assistance can be applied to generate value and to lead to a good user experience. The main challenge that we are tackling with LabTwin and with smart lab assistants in general is that today experimentation and documentation are two separate things. Scientists do perform, execute an experiment, and at the end of the day or at the end of the week, they document their findings. And this separation leads to various challenges in the process. And we outlined two of the main challenges here on that slide. What we saw in many companies is that documentation actually takes place much later after experimentation. So we saw everything from 5 minutes to 4 weeks until the report is written about the experiment. And you can imagine that you will miss some of the details after such a long time. I mean, if I only think about my morning today, I even can't remember how many cups of teas I drank or at what time of the day I actually started my computer. And yeah, what should happen is that every detail is documented and that you have timestamps also attached to all of your notes. And that's especially important for things like in vivo experiments, where you have a lot of observations, where lots of things can happen, where you have both hands busy and you just need to capture all those different details because you don't know what will be important at the end of the day. The other challenge is about convenience and time saving. So as there is no computer in the lab usually or not available while you are working at the lab, people help themselves with paper. There is no paper-free lab now. This is what we realized. And means at the end of the day or at the end of the week, scientists typically spend 30 minutes to retype everything from paper into the computer. And that is not only time consuming, but also it's tedious, it's getting on your nerves. And of course, also errors can happen. I mean, if you retype some numbers, you type 100 numbers and maybe you get 98 right. So better to reduce the number of information transitions to improve also reproducibility here. During the last months or even earlier, we did a lot of interviews with scientists and ask what they need, what they want, what lab managers need. And we came up with a big list of wishes, and I just represent 6 of them here on that slide. So working hands-free is of course a big expectation from scientists. Being able to capture notes while you have your gloves on, while you're standing at the bench. And these notes should be captured in real time, right? So that you have that information available digitally, saved securely, no paper can be contaminated, and that's what we call here with real-time digitalization. Also, scientists really like the idea of having all data centralized in one device, like a remote control for the lab, so to say, but not only control, also like an access point, all relevant information at your fingertips, a central access point to different databases. And this is where the 2 points below here relate, so that you can access information from different devices, from balances, from sensors, from incubators, and also access data from different databases, from the LIMS, from the ELN, but also from inventory management, so that you don't have to log into 5 different computers in the lab, put in your password here and there, but rather have it all at your fingertips. And basically you ask your smart assistant, and your smart assistant, like the person next to you, gives you the relevant information. Last but not least, the constraint here is audit trail and having things basically reflecting the Alcoa principles of data integrity, having things time-stamped, having things available, complete, accurate, contemporaneous. And if you document faster, of course, you also improve on that perspective. With LabTwin, we spend a lot of effort and energy to meet the science requests, and we build basically 2 things, a mobile app and a web app. And what you see here on the left-hand side is a screenshot from our mobile app. And that mobile app allows you various things. So you can put your standard operating procedures into the smart assistant, and the smart assistants will guide you through. You can take the different notes, and you can take those notes either like in a freestyle fashion, like here, basically the post-it as a voice note. But what scientists also find really valuable is to have a little bit more structure in their notes. For example, a table or a protocol, and we support both. Basically, scientists can attach their notes to the specific step of the protocol, or you can directly import your information into a table and later export that table into the LIMS, into the ELN, or just into Excel if you like. Then the notes are, of course, not only encapsulated in the mobile phone, but we need and we provide a seamless data transfer, sending data to the ELN, to the LIMS, getting data from instruments, and with a LabTwin open API, basically, you can make it really easy to exchange data between different systems. The report end result here, so the process from the voice notes to the full report is facilitated by LabTwin's report functionalities. We try to automate here as much as possible, so that basically you get a nice report out of your voice note, out from your protocol, out from your table. You can easily assemble it all together and get a report without much retyping. To make it really work, actually quite some things need to be individualized for the labs. So science is similar and life science is similar in each of the labs. So that's why we trained LabTwin with a lot of life science vocabulary. But what we found is that each company, each domain, each group within life sciences, they have their specific instruments, their words, their substances that they use. And it's actually quite a challenge to really transcribe these things right. And we spent now more than 2 years to really make it work, trained lab twin with a lot of scientific data. And actually when new groups start using lab twin, they give us a bit of text data, the SOPs, for example, and we pre-train lab twin with a relevant vocabulary so that this is accurately transcribed. And if not all of that vocabulary is trained initially, the users can add vocabulary to their glossaries, and thereby the language model continuously improves over time so that lab twin understands you better over time, and of course you also will understand your smart lab assistant better over time. Apart from the natural language understanding, it's also really important to think together with the scientists of how lab twin can be integrated into their workflows. And with lab twin, basically we support 2 modes. The more freestyle mode, basically you use lab twin as a dictation device, you take the different nodes, and at the end of the day, maybe you compile a protocol with them. But also, especially for more routine work, you can individualize lab twin, put in your workflow, your protocol, have lab twin guide you through that protocol. You can even add pictures to the protocol to guide you, or specific tables that you can easily build where basically information can be put in and then exported, or you build these voice interactions where you are prompted for certain inputs. And yeah, that makes it really easy to run through these workflows. If you are an experienced scientist, you will be able to run faster to them, but it's also very interesting for new employees who need a bit more guidance and to support them while running through these protocols and to get started quickly. And from a science side, I mean, I'm a scientist, but not a life scientist. So I'm happy that Celia is doing the presentation together with me, and she will dive a little bit deeper into the scientific use cases.
Exactly. So as you said, there's a lot of workflow which could benefit from a digital lab assistant. But to give everyone a more concrete idea here, the most popular one where we could witness immediate value so far. So for example, any workflow handling cell culture, because when a scientist works under the hood in sterile conditions with gloves on, it is really helpful to be able to capture and access data by voice without having to interrupt what you're doing. Sample preparation is also benefiting largely from the support of a digital lab assistant, because when a scientist can follow SOP verbally guided and collect back results with connected devices such as barcode scanners and balances and voice notes, the process becomes really seamless and much faster. It is also very appreciated for method development in general, because scientists need to capture deviations and parameters on the fly while they tweak their experiment and protocols, and then gather all these notes in one place and optimize their protocols afterwards. Also, any regulated work, because with a digital lab assistant, you can directly validate protocol compilation by voice and capture results with automatic audit trails. So we have many more other use cases, but let me walk you through a classical workflow supported by a digital lab assistant. So here's a classical bacteria assay. You display samples in Petri dish and count how many bacteria colonies grow in each sample roughly. The first step, you would like to record the material and reagent that you're using. Usually you would write it down on a paper form, but this can be done in a few minutes by scanning directly the barcode of the devices or reagents if you have them locked in the database, for example, or simply by voicing the details to your digital lab assistant while you're going through it. And if it's integrated with the LIMS, all the reagent and sample details are directly linked with this particular assay that you're running. So next step, you prepare a sample. So that could mean diluting them, for example. And here you would simply follow the steps dictated in your ear by the digital lab assistant, like a very patient colleagues would do. And at the same time, you could record the sample positions or ask the digital lab assistant to calculate the dilution you need. The process becomes seamless and much faster. Then you would need to incubate. And here, digital lab assistance comes with smart tools such as timers or reminders to keep track of the different experiments that you might be running in parallel. And then you don't have to get confused of which kitchen timer is related to which experiment anymore. And then you count the colonies in each samples. And here you can directly voice the numbers to the digital lab assistant. And it will build automatically your tables with the sample names and the colony counts together with it. And you can export later on this table into Excel sheet format, for example. At the end of the experiment, usually you can generate a report with all these notes and results and materials together in one comprehensive that you can have as a PDF uploaded on the cloud or even directly in an integrated ELN. And this removes around 30 minutes per day normally that are always used to transcribe these notes from paper or various digital formats into one place. So to get even more concrete now, let me show you how it would look like to have a digital assistant that assists you in a very, very simple protocol. Here it's a 3-step protocol where you would register the material, weight the sample in a connected balance, and then dilute these samples with a calculated amount of solutions directly by the digital lab assistant. So let me play now this video.
Pineapple. Open protocol Folge.
Scan instruments, material and reagents. Sartorius Cubis 2.
Continue.
Folge solution.
Continue.
Pipette Sartorius.
Pipette tips number AUC8384, expiration on 11/18. Next step.
Weigh and dilute samples with Folge solution. Sample 1.
CB98.
Weight.
Capture weight.
Folge, 1040 microliter.
Next.
Sample 2.
CB99.
And you go over your samples. I just stopped after the second one, not to have it too repetitive, but I hope now you could get a crispier idea of how a digital lab assistant can support daily scientific routines and make it seamless. So using our digital lab assistant, LabTwin, our customers have already seen an impact on their efficiency and reproducibility thanks to the enriched documentation. They saved up to 4 hours in cell culture or sample prep workflows. In QC testing, this was representing 30 to 50% of their time. And sometimes it was the entire time of another person which was saved because you would just remove the need for another person to take notes for you. And this time save was combined with an increase in the quality of their work. User could record 34% more details. Some users could record ideas outside of the lab, and several mentioned an increase in note quality and richness. They also reported 80% more focus. They didn't have to interrupt the experiment to capture or access information while they are at the bench. And some lab estimated a 50% increase in reproducibility by enabling better documentation and facilitating troubleshooting. And there are also additional benefits that come from using digital lab assistants and the fact that it's mobile, that it goes where the user goes. Smart tools such as timers and reminders, as I mentioned earlier, connected to the very specific protocol right now, helps to stay on track with experiment tasks, even if you're going to another building or leaving work for the day. And scientists always try to optimize waiting time to fit in other tasks. But the difficult part of that is that sometimes we forget about the first thing you start and what status it has left. So now you can just have a look at your digital lab assistant and focus back on the correct experiment. To which scientific it didn't happen to leave the lab and then return hours later because you forgot a time-sensitive experiment. And here, you would have a reminder popping in your digital lab assistant. LabTwin also facilitates work remotely. A scientist at the top 10 pharma mentioned that she cannot access her ELN from home, and accessing the notes via LabTwin was very useful for her, especially right now in this COVID-19 time, because the mobile can always be with you. And we heard many stories about capturing ideas on the go. Many scientists also use LabTwin to prepare the day for the experiment, recording ideas or troubleshooting it while stuck in traffic or in the bus on the way to work. All this add up to the amount of data being captured, and having it all centralized in one tool is what makes it powerful. So all these stories validate our vision of making data dynamic. Over the last decades, we moved from taking notes from a paper lab notebook to a first form of digitalization with ELNs. However, at the bench, scientists are still very much disconnected from most lab informatics software, and the data is still not being captured or accessed in real time at the point of experiment. Scientists still need to move away from the bench and write down a report in the ELN from memory or paper notes. So we want now to move to data that is truly dynamic, that can be accessed from anywhere, can be captured effortlessly, structured automatically, and finally harmonized across the organization. And for that to happen, we need new technology to be user-centric or scientific-centric and workflow-specific. Digital lab assistant can be this bridge between the scientist at the bench and all the legacy system storing the data. So this is how digital lab assistant fit in the lab of future ecosystem as a digital twin for the scientist, interacted with connected devices or legacy software, empowering lab automation and supporting with data-driven decisions. So I will now finish with a little more about who we are. So at LabTwin, we are a very international team, as you can hear from our accent, based in Berlin, Germany. We are a very heterogeneous team, actually, from experts of various fields: life science, data science, engineering, design, bioinformatics. We are backed by Sartorius, a large laboratory equipment supplier, and Boston Consulting Group. And because of that, we have the agile and creative DNA of a startup, while still benefiting from the established process, security, and support of a large corporation. And we are now working with 7 out of top 20 large pharma and chemical companies, as well as with some academic labs and CROs in Europe and also in US. So thank you very much for your attention. And